Hello, and welcome everybody to South African Airways webinar on honeymoons in South Africa and beyond. My name is Gabe Greenberg. Honeymoons and Africa are my specialty here, and I'm just going to take you on a quick little tour of how I book honeymoons in the South African region. All right. So a little bit about us. South African Airways Vacations is a division of South African Airways. We're basically their vacation arm of their business. We will handle everything from flights to hotels, to tours, to transfers, rental cars, anything of the sort. And we will not just do South Africa, but we'll do Zambia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Tanzania, Namibia, all the Indian Ocean islands. And I'm probably missing a couple, but you'll see all our information on our website as well. Aside from what we do for South African Airways, we are also a company called Destination South Africa, which is our own personal company. And we basically do the exact same stuff. But if we're not going to be selling the airlines, then we book them under Destination South Africa. Destination South Africa also, I would like to just kind of add, if you go to our website, you will see that we have a really, really good charity arm to our business called DSA Pays It Forward, of which I'm also very much involved. So I'm just throwing a quick shout out for DSA Pays It Forward and all the great things we do for people in need in Africa, especially South Africa. Okay, so starting with flights. They're going to provide you with headphones on these flights. In fact, they even provide you with a mask for your eyes, keep it dark. They'll give you pillows, they'll give you blankets. But inevitably, I think people would probably rather have their own headphones. So you're going to need to have an adapter that goes from the one prong to the two prong, like most flights. Snacks, because no matter that they give you 2 meals and cocktails and drinks, it's a long flight, and eating always helps you sleep. And you're definitely going to want to sleep the second half of the flight. Seat-friendly activities, so a tablet with games or movies. Anything that can keep you busy when you're not sleeping in your seat on a long flight. Pillow and blanket. I wouldn't pack those. It's just too much to bring. But I definitely always recommend the neck pillow that wraps around your neck. That's always a positive. And I'm always a fan of gum because when you're chewing gum and swallowing, it'll help pop your ears on your takeoff and on your descent. Once you get into South Africa, in particular as a country, I always recommend people to wear layers because it doesn't matter really what season you're in, the weather is going to change. Give you an example. In the winter, if you're out on safari, it could be pretty cold in the morning to the point where you're wearing a sweater and a hat, but by the middle of the afternoon, you could literally be back in a t-shirt and shorts. So always good to just kind of dress in layers for South Africa because you will see 4 seasons in one day in a lot of places. When you're actually out on safari, it's always best to wear natural colors minus the white. Lightweight shirts, shorts, pants, sweater. I always recommend to my clients to get those safari pants where you can actually zip off the bottom parts of the legs so that you just have shorts. They're usually a really good material, usually quick to dry if they get wet. And of course, you have the extra coverage because you can just zip back on the rest of your leg. Windbreaker jacket's a good thing to have. A hat with a brim. The sun gets very bright out there, as well as some sunglasses. Dinner outfit and sunscreen and bug spray. I will also talk about the bug spray stuff as there are going to be clients that are going to ask about malaria-free. We do offer a ton of malaria-free safaris in the Eastern Cape and places like Shamwari, Kariga, Madikwe, as well as places up in Pilanesberg. So we're talking about Shepherd's Tree and Ivory Tree and Kwai Maratan. And I will tell you that in my trips to South Africa, I've never encountered anybody with any kind of malaria problems. And I would say in 15 years of our business, we haven't incurred anything with malaria. But we are not legally doctors, and so legally, I tell every client to just go to see their primary and tell them where they're going, and let their doctor tell them what's best for them. All right, moving along. Now you're actually on the flights. I would definitely always suggest that if you're doing the flight from New York, because it's an 11 o'clock flight, if you're going, usually most people start in Cape Town. So as you come through Johannesburg, you can usually have your clients there by 12, 12:30, maybe even as late as 2 o'clock, but they're at their hotel by 2 o'clock next day. When you use the DC flight, you're not leaving till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you're also going to make a stop in either Ghana or Senegal on the way out for about a quick hour. So most likely you're not at your hotel until about 9:30, 10 o'clock the next day, PM, if you do the DC flight. The great thing about the DC flight, though, is it's a lot easier to get people there if they're not coming from the DC area, because you have all the way until basically 3 o'clock to get them there so they can get their bags and check them in for an international flight. When we do quote our prices, we will include all tax and fees. We will do all internal flights within Africa. We will also do domestic air flights from a number of U.S. cities, and it doesn't have to be a South African Airways port. In other words, if I'm flying somebody on a red eye out of LAX to get them to the 11 o'clock flight in JFK, I'm probably going to put them on the Virgin Atlantic flight because it's pretty inexpensive. And since we're not getting any great deals on those, we're just getting the deals on our SAA flights. It's a great way to keep the price down and keep the guest happy so that we can, put more stuff in on land and they can truly enjoy their honeymoon. Premium business class is always available. Another thing with SAA that's good to know is that we are either economy or business class. The key for people who are in economy that don't want to spend the extra $5,000 usually for a business class seat is that once we book you, you can actually go online and actually pre-purchase, if it's important enough to you, your own seats to guarantee where you will be sitting. So, someone can just as easily, instead of going up to business class, can get an economy seat and immediately go online once they're booked, and for $25 a seat, get themselves all the way through on emergency row seats and have tons of extra space, or a window seat or an aisle seat, whatever's going to make this honeymoon that much more pleasurable. All right, so now you've actually made it into Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg. Usually this is not the first stop in the sense of you're actually going to be leaving the airport. Most of our trips from here will take you out to Victoria Falls, out to Kruger, Eastern Cape, Durban, or Cape Town. So anyway, once you arrive in Tambo, you will go through immigration. As you retrieve your luggage, you'll clear customs, and then you're going to recheck your bag so you can head on your way, most likely to Cape Town. It's a very easy airport to navigate, very helpful. I just did it again this past December without any issues. Okay, these next two slides in particular are more informational slides that if I was recommending to all of you, I would hold on to this because this is going to give you basic travel times from Johannesburg and Cape Town to all the more popular places that we'll send you to. So you have Johannesburg to Cape Town, Johannesburg to Port Elizabeth. Port Elizabeth will be where I'll send you if you're going to do an Eastern Cape malaria-free safari in Shamwari, Kariga, and Madikwe. I definitely recommend all those properties. It's an amazing safari experience. Johannesburg on to Durban, and then you have Cape Town on to Durban, Cape Town to Hoedspruit. Hoedspruit is probably one of the more popular airports to use for Kruger National Park safaris. It's in the northern Kruger, so you're going to get a couple of 5-star safaris, but you're definitely going to get a plethora of 4-star safaris, and that's usually where people end up from a price standpoint. Cape Town and Kruger International Airport, MQP, doesn't get used very often anymore these days because now you also have Cape Town to Skakuza, which is where most of your 5-star safari lodges are in the southern Sabi lands of the Kruger National Park. And a lot of those places also on top of it, with 3-night stays, usually offer free charter flights into their actual airstrip in the reserve. So for instance, let's say with Sabi Earth Lodge, if you have a client that can afford that kind of stuff and really wants to do up their honeymoon, or say Lion Sands, most likely what we'll do is we'll fly them from Cape Town, if that's where they are, to Johannesburg, and then those free charter flights on the planes right into the reserve, go from there and then back from there. What that inevitably does, besides making people feel great about taking a private little jet into a private reserve in Kruger, is the fact that if you were to fly into Hoedspruit or into Skakuza, most likely from that airport, you're going to have about a 30-minute to maybe sometimes as much as an hour of a road transfer to the actual safari lodge. Where now, if you fly directly into Sabi, you fly directly into Lion Sands, or Thorny Bush even for that matter, on the northern Kruger, you're there. It's just literally from the airstrip to the lodge. So you just get more time where you're going to be spending the most money, because safari is always the most expensive part of honeymoons or any trip to South Africa, unless maybe you're going to add in some Mauritius or Seychelles, which we'll get to soon. Okay, so now you're in Cape Town. One of the things I always recommend about Cape Town, especially if I'm going to be booking your tours, is, of course, the Cape Point Tour. So Cape Point Tour is amazing. It's very unique and very diverse in the sense that you'll start off at Hout Bay with all the playful seals sitting on the docks and the beach. Then from there, you're going to drive through a breathtaking views of Chapman's Peak. When you get all the way through Chapman's Peak, you're going to end up at that point at the Cape of Good Hope, where the two oceans meet, Indian and Atlantic. From there, you will go to the Boulders Beach Penguin Colony, which is always fun and very interesting to see penguins in such a warm weather destination like South Africa. And then from there, you'll usually finish up at Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens, which has 2,000 types of flora and fauna that you will not find anywhere else in the world except there. Also, in respects to a honeymoon package, I always try and book this as a private tour. So it's just the two people and their guide, because then we can set them up with a champagne toast at the top of Signal Hill at sunset. Signal Hill is a part of the Table Mountain experience. And just, it's a nice way. I usually do the Cape Point tour the first full day that they're in Cape Town, and something, about, cheersing champagne at sunset overlooking the entire city of Cape Town and the two oceans and just everything that's beautiful about South Africa. It's a nice way to kind of start off your honeymoon and really feel like you're doing something special. I have the Victoria and Alfred waterfront on here, as that is one of the more popular destinations that people ask for as far as where they'd like their hotel to be. It is a very good place. It's a very safe place. And there's tons of stuff to do just within that area. I also like the Taj. We'll get to that as well. But that's more into town. And then the other thing, too, that I always promote for Cape Town excursions and tours is the shark cage dive. And I know that that's mostly for a very specific traveler who's into that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I would say that, doing something like that, which is unbelievably completely safe, and nothing's ever happened in these situations, but going through something like that with your brand new wife or husband definitely seems like a very cool thing to do on a honeymoon, and will create amazing pictures. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the accommodations that I like to use when doing honeymoons. The one and only, obviously, is a huge one for us in the sense that it is literally a resort in the city. It is in the middle of the V&A waterfront, the Victoria and Alfred waterfront, and it literally has its own intercoastal way from the Atlantic Ocean, and boats can literally take you to the one and only. Like if you're staying there and you rent a boat or you took a boat there, there's these little waterways that run in between all the hotels, hotel buildings and the main building. And it just creates a really nice, tranquil environment, even though you're right in the heart of Cape Town. Obviously, so then it's overlooking the marina and has all kinds of amazing views of Table Mountain. They have Ruben's Restaurant there, which is a local restaurant there with a lot of notoriety. And then, of course, Nobu, which is in every major city in the world. It's probably the most recognized high-end sushi that you can pretty much find anywhere. And they do a very, very nice job with it at the one and only. And then, of course, they have an amazing spa there with all kinds of treatments that always makes up for a very nice way to do a honeymoon. Okay, the Taj. This is probably my favorite hotel in Cape Town. I like it because you're probably only about 12 blocks from the V&A waterfront, but you're also probably only about 3 or 4 blocks from Long Street and Cliff Street, where there's a lot of stuff going on, and that's a lot of where the locals go at night or for shopping and restaurants and bars. And it's very nice. You can actually walk to those areas from the Taj. I would probably take a cab from the Taj to the V&A waterfront, although walking there is all downhill, about 12 to 14 blocks, and then I just take the cab back. But it's just very vibrant, very contemporary. Had the best breakfast there my entire time in Africa, every time I go to Africa. And I really like it. And it's across the street from Parliament. It just has a really nice city feel. Cape Town obviously has better weather than New York, but you almost feel sometimes when you walk outside the Taj like you're just walking out into into the city street in Manhattan. It just seems like there's a lot going on, but it's welcoming, and I like the Taj. I'll just leave it there. Okay, the Mount Nelson. Mount Nelson is going to be far and away our most expensive property that we do a lot with for honeymoons, but it's also the #1 rated hotel in all of Africa by TripAdvisor in 2016. And I'm pretty sure some other sites and some other years it has been listed as, if not the top hotel in South Africa, definitely top 5. And it's gorgeous. And it's just top of the line, super boutique, and it is very centrally located. It is not in the V&A waterfront, but it is not far. Kind of like the Taj. Okay, things to actually do when you're in Cape Town. Obviously, it's a honeymoon. Let's start talking about wine and the Winelands. I make sure to let people know that it is not like Napa in any way, shape, or form. It's probably more like some of the wine areas of France, because that's where all the grapes originally came from. They all came from Europe. The Cape Winelands is an older grape growing, wine producing area than Napa by probably a good 100 years. In fact, when they had all kinds of issues with their harvests in France, they went back down to Cape Town and grabbed a bunch of vines and brought them back and restarted a lot of the vineyards in France with the grapes from Cape Town. So it is a really, really nice area. Lots and lots and lots of places to see. When we do our Winelands tour, we'll take them to a plethora of world-class vineyards, and then it'll also include 3 wine tastings, 1 cheese tasting, and then the 3 towns that make up the Winelands are Stellenbosch, Parle, and Franschhoek. Franschhoek being the smallest and most quaint, really cool place. We make sure that we stop there at lunchtime so you can wander around, find some lunch, and I would say the Cape Winelands are like a cross between Cape Cod and Napa, if that makes sense. You know, it's very quaint, and these little houses, you almost feel like you're walking around Hermanus in Cape Town. In Cape Cod. I also very much like Spear, especially as a place where we can actually put somebody for a night or two if they just don't want to be in the city and they really want to be away for their honeymoon. Spear is great because, number one, they do the most amazing wine tasting I've ever seen in any place I've been in the world, between the chocolates and the meats and the cheeses and the homemade breads and butters. It's very nice. But they also have a program where you can ride on a Segway through the actual vineyard, like up and down the rows. They have a bird sanctuary with, oh man, I must say at least 25 to 30 different types of eagles and hawks that you can actually have land on your arm. They have all kinds of owls. They have a petting zoo, a pool, a lake. You can go bike riding around the vineyard. It's just a kind of a full encompassing property that's not just a vineyard. So I always recommend that one if I'm going to have a honeymoon couple stay in the Winelands, not just do the tour and come back to Cape Town. All right, Thorny Bush. So now we're going to get into some of the game reserves. Thorny Bush is probably one of our more popular partners as far as that goes, because they have 4 stars and they have 5-star lodges. And they're very good at what they do. I usually stay at Thorny Bush when I'm in Africa. I have a very good relationship with them. They do a great job with their guides and making sure that pretty much you're not going to leave without seeing your big 5. They'll do walking safaris at no extra charge. They have a beautiful wine cellar in their Simbambili Lodge, and they have about 14 lodges at Thorny Bush. So maybe you're staying at Thorny Bush Waterside or Thorny Bush Main. I can still put you in a private dinner in the wine cellar on your honeymoon, and it really feels special. They'll also do private dinners at your room, on your private deck, so that's always nice. And they also do couple spa treatments. If you're in the northern part of Kruger and using one of their 4-star lodges, they have their spa at Thorny Bush, Maine. If you're in the southern Sabi Sands area where they have 2 or 3 other lodges, they actually partner up with another 5-star lodge where you would go and do your spa treatments there. Sabi Game Reserve is probably one of the more boutique safari lodges out there, with Lion Sands, maybe Mala Mala. But Sabi is just gorgeous. Their Earth Lodge is very unique. Nothing like anything I've ever seen. Very modern stylings, but at the same time, you are completely and utterly immersed in the African bush. When we went there, we flew directly right into Sabi, and from when I got off the plane, within 4 minutes, I was watching 3 lions in the middle of a kill with a water buffalo. It was pretty intense and pretty amazing that it happens that close. I would say some of the best animal viewing I've ever seen anywhere was in the Sabi area. They keep everything very private. They keep everything very small, so you don't get lost. Never more than 7 seats in a safari vehicle, but they'll try and keep it to 2, 4, or 6. All their lodges are 5-star, and you definitely will have no problems with the big 5, especially leopards. When you want to go beyond South Africa for some honeymoon stuff, I always at least start with Victoria Falls. Kind of mimics the way Americans look at honeymoons. and going to Niagara Falls here in the New York, Toronto area, or and whatnot, Canada area, I should say. But there's a lot more to do, I think, and I'm a New Yorker, and there's a lot more to do in the Victoria Falls area. They've got zip lines and canopy tours, elephant back safaris. It's also in a very interesting, like, kind of four corners type area between Zambia and Zimbabwe, which is obvious because they both share the falls and they both border South Africa. But at the same time, some of the things that I do if someone's going to stay for at least 3 days in Victoria Falls is I'll send them out on a Chobe day tour. So basically, you'll get picked up at your hotel, you'll get into your safari jeep, you cross over the water, and now you're in Botswana. So you're not in Zambia, Zimbabwe, or South Africa. Now you're in Botswana, and they'll drive you out to Chobe National Park, where you'll get to do a safari experience there. Botswana safaris are obviously usually a lot more water based because there's just more water in Botswana, and a lot of the game viewing happens around those areas. Okay. So that's Zimbabwe and Zambia. I always like to put people on the sunset cruise, no matter which side of the border they're on, whether it's Zimbabwe or Zambia. The other thing too now, that's a good thing to mention, is that when you're flying into either Zimbabwe or Zambia for your Victoria Falls portion of your honeymoon, you were able to buy something called a Univisa, which for about $85 American allows you during your time there to walk freely back and forth between the border. So if you have somebody staying in Zimbabwe, they can still go to Zambia. And if they're in Zambia, they can still go to Zimbabwe. It does not count for going across the border into South Africa, and does not count in going into across the border into Botswana, but definitely between Zimbabwe and Zambia. So like I said, there's also zip lines and bungee jumps. Devil's Pool is that picture on the bottom left there. That water is probably not more than knee to waist high, but that is literally the drop down the falls right there. But the water, the way it pools, does not push you in any way, shape, or form, so it's actually completely safe, but the view is amazing. Obviously, we'll do guided tours of the falls. I've mentioned the elephant back safaris. There are helicopter tours over the falls, and of course, the Chobe day trip. Another thing that I think is also a very romantic thing to do is no matter what hotel we put your clients after their honeymoon, it's always nice to get them over to the Victoria Falls Hotel, which is kind of old and quaint, but it's where it's situated. It's really nice. It's a very popular thing to do, is to have high tea at the Victoria Falls Hotel, basically sitting over the falls. Dugong Beach Lodge. So Mozambique is a very interesting place because a lot of people don't ask for it, but it is epically beautiful and welcoming and luxurious and calm. And definitely you feel like you've taken a trip away from everybody. And I would say that if you have the kind of clients that can afford, say, Sabi Sands and Lion Sands and those types of places and the one and only, and they're looking to extend their trip and have some beach time, they're probably not going to ask for Mozambique. But if they're asking about Mauritius or Seychelles, I might offer them Mozambique because it's a really, really, really nice place. And usually easier to find availability and also easier to get flights in and out than, say, Mauritius or Seychelles. But Mauritius and Seychelles are still wonderful. Our one and only property there is top of the line, golf, tennis, yoga gym, full spa, everything that you're going to expect out of a 5-star, fully inclusive, honeymoon destination on an Indian Ocean island. I mean, Seychelles, Mauritius are amazing, and they're definitely something that everyone should put on their bucket list. And definitely if you can do it for your honeymoon. On top of that, we'll also do Zanzibar, we'll do Madagascar, we'll do the Maldives. And that kind of concludes, for the most part, a very basic kind of skimming over of how we do honeymoons, especially through South African Airways Vacations and Destination South Africa. Again, my name is Gabriel Greenberg, and my email, as you can see, is gabe@flysaavacations.com. And please feel free to give me a call at any time. I'd be more than happy to help you actually book a client or just give you advice on some of the great places to be. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you soon.